another edition of the 2-Point Conversion with Fish and Nooch. Like always, you can find us over at www.gamedaytigers.com. Y'all come check us out. Well, it is game day, people. We got Saturday night in Death Valley, 6 p.m. The Arkansas Razorbacks are coming into Death Valley to face off against your LSU Tigers, coming off a big win against Mississippi State. In this podcast, Nooch and I review the Mississippi State game, which is, quite frankly, the best performance on both sides of the ball, certainly all season, and maybe in the Brian Kelly era at LSU. Kind of surprising, in fact, and Nooch and I are going to talk about that. And then we are also going to preview the Arkansas Razorbacks coming into Death Valley. Let's go ahead and bring in my buddy from down the bayou, down there in Montague, Louisiana. He's over there in West Texas, y'all. I've heard West Texas is the best Texas. I don't know about that. I'll let him decide. Y'all help me welcome in my buddy Nooch.
What's happening, Nooch?
How's it going, Fish? How'd you like that game?
Hey, man, I had a good time Saturday. I really didn't know what to expect. I felt like, and we talked about it last week, this is going to be a low-scoring, ugly game, like typical Jefferson Pilot time slot at Mississippi State, cowbells, and bad football. That ain't what we saw.
Not at all. That was interesting.
I mean, LSU under Brian Kelly has been notorious for slow starts. And honestly, this year, we can't say that in all three games, even the one we lost.
Right.
But the offense without Mason Taylor, he was out Saturday with a sprained ankle. It's different, but it isn't worse.
Definitely not worse. I kind of like it.
Man, Malik Neighbors had a day.
How high up the list LSU wide receivers do you have him now?
I'm going to go ahead without thinking and say top 5.
I would say that's probably about accurate. I would say the same.
We got some guys, we got some dudes, and I'm a little older than you, and I can go back to Eric Martin and Wendell Davis.
I remember Wendell Davis. I saw him play.
But, yeah, I mean, you got Chase and Jefferson. You got to throw them in there. And then Josh Reed. So
yeah,
I would say Malik is probably at least trending to be above Eric Martin. So
okay. Eric Martin was before my time. I mean, I remember him with the Saints, but him at LSU was before my time.
So top 5. That's where I'm going.
I'm good with that. I would throw Eddie Kennison in that mix, too, somewhere.
Man, I don't know, Nooch. Why'd you get me into this? Because you got Jarvis Landry, you got Odell Beckham. I don't know, man. Are we wide receiver you?
Shit, we might be, which is really impressive considering we pretty much never have a quarterback. But, yeah, maybe we are.
Speaking of quarterbacks, well, we had one Saturday.
Yeah, we did. Wasn't that nice? Where did that come from?
I mentioned Mason Taylor. I said the offense was different. Do you think that the absence of Mason Taylor had anything to do with Jaden Daniels' performance? And what I mean by that is his style of play?
I think originally I did because, like you had mentioned, you and I talked off air, it does kind of force him to go somewhere else with the ball. But the thing that got me was the patience that Daniel showed Saturday. How many times did you see him back there shuffling his feet, sitting back, waiting? Even when Mason Taylor was there, Daniels would take off and run, and he didn't. He just sat back and waited for the play to develop. That part, I don't think you can attribute to Taylor not being there. Maybe the throwing it downfield to Malik, obviously, instead of Taylor, that probably was somewhat on the Mason Taylor not being there, but I don't know where the patience come from. That's the part that I was intrigued with.
He hung in there several times knowing he was going to get popped and delivered strikes. Let's run through his numbers real quick, and then I'll let you run through Malik's. But Jaden Daniels, 30 of 34, 361 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, oh, by the way, just for good measure, he scored a couple of touchdowns with his legs.
Yes, and at halftime, just look at his halftime numbers. At halftime, he was 21 for 22, 255 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Jesus.
The one incompletion was an intentional throwaway. He chucked it into the first row. He kind of avoided pressure. No one was open, went outside, and he tossed it. It was an obvious throwaway. It wasn't an inaccurate pass. You could damn near really throw that one out and say he was 21 for 21.
Well, he started the game off 13 of 13.
Yeah, and then that was his incomplete. That was his only incompletion of the half. God. And I believe his first incompletion of the second half was also a throwaway, if I remember correctly.
I know he had one bad throw. He was trying to dump it off to John Emery and threw it behind him.
Yeah, I do remember that pass.
It's the only bad throw I saw. But, I mean, you can't even... Who cares? The dude was dropping dimes downfield. What we've been begging for. You said in the preseason podcast you needed to see something from him still. Because I was thinking, he's going to be great, And you said, I still need to see it.
For one, we didn't know until as the season progressed that he really was terrible at throwing the fade. But, man, he threw a couple of absolute beautiful fades Saturday. But my thing was I needed to see him pull the trigger downfield. And shit, that second touchdown to Malik Neighbors on 4th and 6, you throw it deep down the field on a fade? Well, holy crap. Was that audible? Was that Denbrock calling that? We haven't seen that before. Where did that come from, and is that now a part of the offense?
Yeah, I hope it is. It needs to be.
Myself.
I didn't have this in the notes, but I'm going to throw it out there. Interesting with Mason Taylor out, we also didn't see Kyron Lacey. I think he may have taken some snaps, but he wasn't involved in the offense.
I don't recall seeing him at all, actually.
So basically, the wide receivers were Malik and Chris Hilton.
Yep.
Aaron Anderson was out there, not really involved.
I'm kind of curious on that one, too. Like, I don't quite understand what we're attempting to do with Aaron Anderson. I mean, is he there strictly for the threat of a jet sweep and wants every now and then kind of toss it to him, and that's it?
Well, here's my take on that. If Aaron Anderson has a position as a wide receiver, he's in the slot.
Right.
Malik's in the slot.
Yeah, well, I'm taking Malik over him, of course.
Yeah. So, and I think a lot of people may not realize this, but Aaron Anderson's, he's still a freshman. He's a redshirt freshman, but he was hurt last year.
Correct.
I mean, this is his first year. And, the talent we know is there. I saw him in high school. I know he's electric, but, he's still putting it together.
I'm good with that. I'm just curious more so of the how he's being used kind of thing.
Yeah, and it could be. I mean, everybody knows he's lightning fast, and you put him in motion, and sure, that's going to distract the defense. So maybe that is what his main role is. They've handed the ball to him a couple of times and did a little tap pass to him. So there's a threat of it. But yeah, I mean, he's not even returning punts or kickoffs.
Nope.
We'll get to who's returning kickoffs here later on. Does it still bother you that Jaden Daniels led all rushers?
No. My thing earlier in the year was he wasn't just leading all rushers. He was leading all of the rushers combined. Whereas now, at least, yeah, he has the most runs of any one individual, but collectively the running backs are out rushing him, well, out carrying him. My issue, and I mentioned it in chat, is, man, when you're up 42-7, I really don't see any good reason to have your quarterback running somewhere around and across the middle where linebackers are getting free licks on him. That to me is just that is not a good recipe. That needs to be changed, and that's more on coaching than it is on Jaden.
He needs to learn to slide. There's no question about that. We had that. You remember those conversations in 2019 with Joe Burrow?
Yeah, same thing. Slide, dude, or learn a shuffle to the side or something, a slide move. I don't know. You just don't need to be getting popped linebackers, especially not late in games that we're up big. Close game, and we need that extra yard. I get it. He's a competitor, and that's what he's going to try to do. 42-7, that 1 yard's not going to make or break it. Dude, get down.
Well, just FYI, it was 41-7.
True, 41. Sorry.
And that's because LSU kicked 2 field goals and scored 5 touchdowns. So
yeah,
let's talk about the running backs. We talked about the running backs out-carried him as a group. We saw basically in the first half and early second half, we saw 3 guys. Well, we saw John Emery.
Kind of. He had 3 carries total.
Didn't play a big part. Didn't do anything. First game back. But, man, Logan Diggs, that's a hoss.
That dude's good, yeah.
And the reason why you got these guys, and Caleb Jackson, we're going to really talk about him. But Caleb Jackson, everybody wants to see more of him, and so do I. But the reason you got Logan Diggs in there, and sometimes Josh Williams, is because they're better in pass protection.
Right.
And damn, did you see Diggs pancake that blitzer?
I did see that, yes.
And then,
I enjoyed that.
I mean, knocked him flat on his ass and then jumped on top of him like an offensive lineman would. I mean, no, stay.
Yeah, and man, he's a beast with the ball in his hands, too.
Yeah, he is. He's good catching the ball out of the backfield. He's got moves. I don't really know how fast he is, but he's not slow, and he's very quick.
Right.
Now, we do have a fast running back, and it's a true freshman that outweighs Logan Diggs by, 10 pounds, 15 pounds?
I would have to look on the depth chart. I'm not sure how much they both go, but...
Well, I think last week you said he was 6'2", 225.
Probably, it sounds about right.
And that's Caleb Jackson. I said we were going to talk about him. He's not going to play as much as a Logan Diggs or even probably a Josh Williams unless it's a game like Saturday where it's a blowout. He's gonna play a lot. But that's because of the blocking aspect of it. But man, can he run the ball, and he will run over a fool.
I like that. He's he's reminding me of Darius Geis. He's that type. He's got the burst, he's got the speed, and he's, as he showed us, everybody talks about the truck stick, which was impressive, but what about the stiff arm earlier in that run?
So in that run, who's the best stiff armer you ever saw at LSU?
Probably Tofield.
Okay, so on that run, here's what I saw. First thing I saw was the stiff arm.
Okay.
So there's LeBrandon Tofield. The second thing I saw was Darius Geis. That lateral step he took was Darius Geis. That third one, Leonard Fournette, Ole Miss, the truck stick.
Or Auburn that year.
I mean, that one he did against Ole Miss, oh my God. I used to have a meme of that where the guy was half buried, the Ole Miss guy, just his feet were sticking up out of the ground.
Yes, I remember that, yes.
That's what he did to this poor cat. The only problem with that play was when he did it. I mean, he's a true freshman. He's only in his second game because he didn't play in the first game. He's getting his second action, and when he ran over that guy, he admired his work and didn't realize he's still in bounds, and he got hit.
I know what you're talking about, that hesitation. Let me ask you this. Was he admiring it, or was he genuinely concerned for the guy's health?
It could be. I don't know enough of his personality to know if he gives a damn, but I can tell you...
I would like to go that route instead, just because it sounds more like, holy shit, I think I killed the guy.
It looked like he killed him, but I can tell you, had that been me and I ever ran over somebody like that, I'm probably going to stop and take pictures.
Well, yeah, but, I mean, you're like me, and I mean, we both weigh $140 soaking wet. This guy outweighs the two of us combined, so it's a little different aspect coming from him than us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to his future.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
And he's getting the playing time, and it's not just because we're blowing people out. I mean, the coaches see it.
He was in there and getting carries before Josh Williams. Josh Williams is someone we both speak very highly of. There's a ton of respect there coming from us, but also the coaching staff. I mean, Josh Williams is a guy who goes to media days. He's the leading rusher the last 2 seasons.
I think both of us expected he may be number 18 this year. And
I honestly thought he was going to be 18 this year. That I was kind of surprised that he wasn't. He's taking carries from Josh Williams, so that tells you what the coaching staff must think of.
Yeah. So LSU wound up winning this game by a bunch of points. So the fact that LSU was up by so much, we got to see a lot of Garrett Nussmeier later in the game.
Yeah.
I put this in the notes. Somebody needs to put some Stay-Bill in the Nuss bus. You know what Stay-Bill is.
I use it often on my outboard. You pour it in, that way you can kind of maintain your octane even while your gas tank is just sitting there.
Yeah, because that gas tank is just going to be sitting there. Garrett Nussmeier is going to be a good quarterback at LSU, but Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback on the team. He gives the team the best chance to win. Does Garrett Nussmeier throw a prettier ball? Up until this past Saturday, I would have said without a doubt yes. But this past Saturday, I don't know. But yeah, he does.
He does. And my thing with Nussmeier, and I don't know, maybe it will come with if he got more consistent playing time all the time, maybe he would get better. But this isn't the first stinker we see from him. Whereas even if you look at Jaden Daniels' quote-unquote bad games, they're not terrible. Man, when Nuss looks bad, he looks bad. And that's kind of where he's at right now.
Yeah, so we better hope that what everybody thinks about Nussmeier is actually true. I believe it is, but he's not the best quarterback on the team right now. That's Jaden Daniels.
No, definitely not.
And the coaches see this every day. Fans see what they want to see. And, man, after Saturday, I've never seen so much support for Jaden Daniels.
He broke a record for highest completion percentage with more than 25 passes.
Yeah, we've had this guy named Joe Burrow, and he broke that record.
Yeah. Well, say what you want about Jamarcus's pro career, but, he was good enough to be taken number 1 overall as well. So you got a pair of number 1 overall draft picks who didn't do what Jaden Daniels did.
All right, before we get to the defense, I mentioned we kicked a couple of field goals. I'm going to give my weekly Damian Ramos plug. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we had 5 touchdowns. The week before we had 10, and the week before we had 2. So that's 17 for 17 on extra points, and he is now 3 for 3 on field goals.
Yeah.
So pretty good year he's got going.
What is it that you put in chat every time he does anything? Because despite where I am, I do not speak Spanish.
It's good. Está bien.
Okay. Yeah, he's 17 for 17 on extra points, 3 for 3 on field goals.
Yeah, he's perfect on the year. Kudos to Damian Ramos.
Okay, that's probably about right.
It wasn't
I don't know it for sure.
We usually don't talk about other games, but it wasn't the Missouri walk-off 61-yarder that they pulled off Saturday.
Yeah, that guy has to feel good for himself, whatever his name is.
Well, yeah, he won the game, and they were not favored. They were playing a ranked team and walked it off with a 61-yard field goal. That's special teams. Let's switch over to the defense. And talking about switch, boy, they flipped the switch.
Yeah, they did. Very impressed. And isn't it amazing how much better we look when you apply a little bit of pressure to the quarterback?
Yeah, we applied a lot of bit of pressure. Matt House, we talked about this last year. The one thing that was probably his biggest attribute last year was he made great adjustments. And he didn't wait till halftime to do it. He would usually do it late in the first quarter. You started seeing, after the second, third drive from the opposition, you started seeing the adjustments take effect. Well, he must have made his adjustments this week during the warm-ups.
He had to, because it was pretty much from the word jump.
Yeah, Mississippi State, we're going to talk about them, but they didn't have a chance in this game against this defense.
Not at all.
Really against both sides of the ball, LSU dominated. And, I hate to say it, but it was quite a surprise, a pleasant surprise.
Very. Very pleasant.
I saw Denver Harris out there. I never heard his name called. And he was out there a lot.
Not even mention it. Correct. I agree. I don't think I ever heard his name either. Did he even record any stats?
You're the stat guy, but they never threw his way.
Right. Well, tell you what. I just pulled it up. Let me see here. He got 1 tackle, and that's it. That's his entire stat sheet. 1 tackle.
Yeah, they never threw at him. So it was Denver Harris and Zy Alexander started the game. That's 2 games in a row. So I think at this point, we're in SEC play now. You can go ahead and say that Denver Harris and Zy Alexander are your starting cornerbacks.
I'm good with that, too. I actually like what I've seen from both of them.
Yeah, Zy Alexander is he's improving. He's getting up to the speed of the SEC. And then Denver Harris is who I thought he was, if he can just keep his head screwed on straight. And if he can do that and continue to do that, to be honest with you, it's pivotal to the season.
Yeah, he definitely needs to keep his head on straight. But on the Zy Alexander thing, I was scrambling last weekend, but even the times that he got beat, he was literally draped all over guys. One of them, I'm surprised he didn't get flagged for pass interference. He was so all over a guy. So he's been in coverage where he needs to be, and sometimes guys just make a play. If that's our number 2 guy, I'm actually beginning to feel a lot better about, I'm not going to say the secondary as a whole. Let's say corner. I'm feeling a little better about the corner spot right now than I was a couple weeks ago.
You mentioned secondary as a whole. We're going to get to something later on, but I thought Andre Sam played a good game, and he's violent.
He has evil intentions.
Yeah, he chose violence several times Saturday.
I like that. I like his personality. I like his attitude.
Let's talk about the defensive line. And I'm going to talk about somebody that you and I in the preseason podcast, we picked him as breakout player of the season on defense. And it only took him till the third game, but he broke out pretty good Saturday, and that's Savion Jones.
Yeah. You're starting to have a knack talking shit about somebody right before they break out. I'm thinking you need to bash somebody this week. I don't know who, but you need to find somebody and bash them.
It's going to be hard because there was nobody I was disappointed with Saturday.
Okay. I just, I'm trying to remember a couple other examples, but I remember us having discussions similar to this last week that you would talk shit about a guy, and next thing you know, he shows out, and here we go again. We both talk shit about Savion Jones just not being what we thought he was going to be, and Saturday he was.
LSU had 4 sacks, I believe. One of them was by Savion Jones. One of them was by a guy named Harold Perkins.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put in the notes, Harold Perkins is him again.
He is, but he's also someone different. Did you notice they literally lined him up in coverage a few times?
Oh, yeah, multiple times. In fact, what they were doing, I saw some idiots on another website that was complaining about it. And I'm like, you're the same idiots that were complaining because we were playing zone. Now we're playing man. His man went in motion. He had to go out there. It was a running back.
Right. And, I thought he did well. He held his own. He looked good. He's roughly the size of some of the safeties. We've had corners his size that played for us before. He's fast enough to do it. Obviously you wouldn't want him guarding like a little speedy slot guy, but a running back, I'll take my chances with him one-on-one.
Well, and he's very physical, too. For his size, it tends to shock me sometimes when I see him tackle. Because the guy, we mentioned this, but he weighs 212 pounds. Yeah. And, when he hits people, they go backwards. And he runs people down. And he doesn't just, grab them around the ankles and bring them down. No, he throws them down.
Yeah, he hits them. Let them know that he's there.
He's a strong guy. But they're using him. They're using him differently than they were in the beginning of the year, and it's producing results. Even if he's got the 1 sack, but how many throwaways, how many pressures, how many bad plays does Harold Perkins' presence in the backfield create?
See, I don't really know how they determine what's quote unquote quarterback hurry, because he wasn't actually accredited with any this game.
Oh, well, they happen.
Will Rogers, yeah, they absolutely happen, but they're not on the stat sheet, so I don't know what defines a quarterback hurry, but he affects a play. And then he's got that attitude that you and I both like. He lets you know, if you didn't already know you just got hit by a truck, he lets you know you just got hit by a truck. He tells you and everybody else in the stadium that it just happened, and it's that intensity that you and I both mentioned that LSU's defense has lacked over the last several years.
Well, and especially we talked about it after the Florida State game. There was no passion. And all of a sudden,
right,
like I said to start this little segment off, the defense flipped a switch. And it's contagious. Yeah. You see Harold Perkins do it, and he was probably the first one. Well, I don't know. Maybe Savion Jones was the first one when he got that sack early. But Harold Perkins, he started playing with some swagger. And then you see true freshman Whit Weeks.
Yeah.
Talked about him in the preseason podcast. I mentioned we got West Weeks, we got Whit Weeks, and I said they had a brother. I found out that brother's class of 26, and from all indications that I've heard, the younger brother is supposed to be the best athlete of them all. I got to see that because Whit Weeks,
Whit led the team in tackles.
Yeah, and he flies to the ball. I said last week he's a unit, but tell me you didn't flash back to LaRon against Bama on that blitz.
Oh, absolutely. And I said it in chat, which is ironic because not very long before that, I even said that it was off limits to compare anybody to LaRon Landry because he was just a one of a kind. And then here comes Whit Weeks. Other than starting from the linebacker position instead of safety, that looked almost identical to whenever he creamed Sarah Jessica Parker.
Or Brody Croyle. Pick your poison.
Or
yeah, he did it 2 years in a row to 2 different Alabama quarterbacks. The only difference is...
It's the one against Sarah Jessica Parker that was just pure evil. That's
actually how they described it in the broadcast. You mentioned, you don't know how they tally quarterback hurries. But here's the bottom line. If a quarterback in the SEC sees a number 4 rounding the corner, they're going to hurry.
Yeah, even if that doesn't go into the stat sheet, it does.
Yeah, they're off their game right then
and
and there.
Away, yeah, even if you're just throwing it away, if there's so many ways that you can affect the game that never shows up. It doesn't show up in numbers or on paper, but you see it watching the game. And that's something Perkins was even last year. I mean, you remember your favorite coach, Kiffin, even said that was the change in the game when they put in 40, which is the number he wore last year.
I'm glad you mentioned 40. Dude, we need to get something going to get this podcast off the ground. And I think what we're going to do is we need to ditch the number 7 tradition and start a number 40 tradition. What do you think? We got Devin White, we got Harold Perkins last year, and now we got Whit Weeks.
Okay, let's see what we can do. I'm not really sure how we parlay that into something, but sure.
You see, and I know you don't watch the UFC.
No, I don't.
But I do. And, you know, they have title fights on most of the big cards, but if they don't have a title fight, but they have a couple of big names fighting, every now and then they're fighting for, it's a real belt. It's not a championship belt, but it's a real belt, and it's called the BMF belt.
Bad motherfucker.
Yes, that's what the number 40 needs to be.
Okay.
They'll take 2 guys that just always leave it all out there in the octagon. None of this, clinching or hugging or running around, dancing around. They're just throwing haymakers all fight long. They'll put them in the ring together for the BMF belt. That's what I envision the number 40 being for the LSU defense.
Let me ask you a question. Does it have to be a defense?
I say yes, and you should too, because you and I both love defense, and we both love guys that fly to the ball and they'll knock the shit out of somebody, that'll take a ball right out of your hands if you're a running back or a receiver.
I think there every now and then there is an asterisk, and I'm just, I'm envisioning a Torrey Carter wearing a 40.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. The number 40 tradition is for the guy on the field for LSU that it just invokes fear in the opponent.
The guy you do not want to be stuck in a phone booth with.
Yeah, Torrey Carter fits that bill. You're not wrong.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. You pretty much, when you brought up the UFC and the BMF, like, yes, and then actually another fullback before him, a J.C. Copeland type, it's another guy that, those two, but I think the offensive guy would be pretty rare. It would, for the most part, be probably a linebacker.
Maybe a
more
safety.
Often than not. Maybe a safety, yeah.
Yeah, I like it. We're on to something here.
See what I can do here. I'm going to see what I can do. I'm going to go and dig through every email address I can find and start sending out emails to people at LSU and see what we can do with that.
There you go. All right, so this was a game against Mississippi State. I feel sorry for Mississippi State.
I don't.
I do. And the reason I do is because we lost Mike Leach.
You lived in Mississippi?
No. I do have a lot of friends that are Mississippi State grads, fans. But Mike Leach, we lost him earlier this year, and Mississippi State got put in a bad spot. They tried to promote from within, kind of like what we did with Ed Orgeron, and maybe, I don't know. Surely they didn't look at that and say, hey, let's do what they did. But you got Zach Arnett was their defensive coordinator, and they just promote him to head coach. Well, here's a problem. Mike Leach created a very specific offense, and he's been recruiting for years with only that offense in mind. They have a 5-year starter quarterback who's got a career 75% passing efficiency. He's thrown for 1 million yards, but he hasn't ever played anything but air raid since before high school.
Right.
What the fuck are they doing?
I'm going to attempt to, I guess, try to defend these people for some reason. First off, the timing. There was no intentions. It was nothing. There was no warning that this was coming with Leach. It's a different situation than typically if a coach leaves on his own, you kind of see it coming. Or if he gets fired, you definitely see it coming. So you're a lot more prepared than what Mississippi State would have been. And also at the time it happened, for the most part, the coaching cycle had already passed and died down. So you're really left with scraps. And I don't know how desirable Mississippi State is as a school to begin with, let alone in that situation where the head coach just passed and you're going to be viewed not quite as positive of a light because obviously Mike Leach is already going to be a big personality, a big name. But then the way he went, you're going to be viewed differently than you take any other job.
Okay.
So you're limited on who you can take.
Okay.
So
here's where the 2-point conversion. You remember when we said we were going to name it that, and then most of the time we make the same point? Well, here comes a counterpoint to everything you just said.
About damn time.
I mean, you like my cousin Vinny, I know, and I do too. And so I'm going to quote Joe Pesci, Vinny, and I'm going to say everything that guy just said is bullshit. Here's why.
Okay.
Here's why. You were talking about the timing. And maybe you don't know this, but like I said, I know a lot of Mississippi State grads and fans, alumni, and they told me in the spring they ran the air raid. Mike Leach was already gone. Zach Arnett was already head coach. He already hired this offensive coordinator. Why he hired that guy, I don't know, because that guy's got a history of what we saw Saturday, which was dog shit. And in the spring, they ran the air raid. Why would you then say, when we come into fall camp, let's change it all up? And the only reason is because they didn't have time in the spring to install this guy's system. But this guy's system has a track record of shit, and you have personnel for the air raid. You could have hired a high school coach that runs the air raid and done a better job than what we saw Saturday. Somebody from a small college. Hey, you want to be an offensive coordinator in the SEC? I don't care where it is. They're going to take it.
Okay. Yeah, I know a guy who was the offensive coordinator at a Group of 5 school last year. I believe he might even be head coach at an FCS school this year. You probably could have brought in another air raid pioneer, Rich Rod. He was available.
Yeah. I mean,
shit, you could have brought him in as head coach.
Exactly.
He's got
I understand keeping Arnett, but Arnett is a defensive coordinator. That's that. Okay? But I understand keeping him and promoting him up to head coach in that situation. But then what he did with the offensive coordinator and then turning around and changing the offense in fall camp is a disservice to the players that have been there running the same system for 4 years or 5 years.
So now if you're Mississippi State's athletic director, you got two choices here. You're either in this move for the long haul, and it's going to be a painful move, or you decide you want to stay air raid, and you've got to make a change now. You can't do, which bringing up Rich Rod. Rich Rod after Lloyd Carr at Michigan was a very drastic change. You have to give a Rich Rod at least 5 years to bring in the right athletes to run that system, and Michigan didn't. They gave him 3 and then ran him off to bring in another guy who ran the opposite. You can't do that. You dig yourself too deep of a hole. You have to decide, do you want to go the direction Zach Arnett's going, or do you want to stay air raid? And once that decision's made, you got to stick with it.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing. I mean, you're Mississippi State, okay? Mississippi State is not in the same realm as LSU, Alabama, Florida, even Auburn.
Well, you got your Big Six, which was your LSU, Alabama, Auburn in the West, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee in the East. Now you're also adding in Texas and Oklahoma. And shit, let's be honest, Mississippi State's not even Texas A&M. So
they sure do beat them a lot.
Of the pack. Oh, well, I meant where you finish in the rankings, not necessarily one-on-one. But you're middle of the pack SEC, and you're not going to win. You're not going to beat anything more than that if you stick with just traditional type offenses, and that's why I thought Mike Leach was a great hire for them, because you need to do something different.
Yeah, and it worked. They didn't win national championships or even conference championships, but they were competitive. I would not call Mississippi State traditionally middle of the pack.
No, they're traditionally bottom of the pack.
Right. To be middle of the pack was a good thing for Mississippi State, and it was cool because we got to see them beat Texas A&M and scare Alabama a few times. And, I mean, I don't like any other SEC schools. I'm not one of those SEC people, but I do like to see it competitive.
I like to see good games.
Yeah, and it helps LSU.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've been helped before where a team lost a game they weren't supposed to, and it resulted in us winning a conference championship.
Yeah, more than once, and I'm good with it.
Yeah, I mean that's needed to make the league attractive, and Mississippi State had that, and now they don't. And it's just that's why I say I feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for their fans.
I don't feel sorry for anyone else in the SEC.
I said I feel sorry for my friends, man. Come on.
I do know a few people I haven't spoken to in 30 years, but back when my dad and I were still heavily involved in the cattle industry, there was quite a few Mississippi State fans that we knew well. And I wish I could still talk to them, just to talk a little shit, but I guess I do feel sorry for them because, I mean, it's bad enough you're stuck being a Mississippi State fan, and now you got to go through this, like, as if just being Mississippi State wasn't bad enough already.
I mean, you got to live around Starkville.
Why would anyone live around Starkville?
Avoid storm surge? I don't know.
Okay, that's hitting below the belt for me, but yeah, great. Sure, that's one reason. Maybe if you really like RC Cola, I mean...
I got to apologize, but you got to realize when I said that, I'm talking about as opposed to living in further south Mississippi. I'm not talking about what you guys went through last year.
I guess. I will. No, you know what? I said it back in 2019. That is some of the absolute most polite, friendliest people I've ever met was up in that area for the state game in 2019. We were treated absolutely phenomenally by all the locals. So I don't want to talk shit about the people. The people were absolutely great. I can't stomach being friendly to another SEC school. So we'll just leave it at that.
That's cool. And, just to make it where you feel good about being an asshole, they got those cowbells. But LSU silenced the cowbells pretty early. I've been to a game there where that happened, and it's a really pleasant feeling. It's kind of like when you're at the Alabama game and LSU's about to win or Alabama's about to lose. I don't care who they're playing. And you start seeing the fans walk out of the stadium with their heads hung low. That's a beautiful thing. So is the silence once the cowbell-wielding Mississippi State fans realize, we're not winning this game.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, the one I went to was when we still had Joe Burrow, and I guess they figured it out at kickoff because I didn't get the full cowbell experience. Maybe I'll go another year and see. Even my wife and I spoke about it during the LSU game this year. We'll probably make another trip to Starkville one year just to go see another game.
All right, so let's move on to Arkansas. We got Arkansas, a little different schedule this year. You can already see the effects of Texas and Oklahoma coming in. They're already starting to play around with the schedule. Arkansas and LSU has been Thanksgiving time frame for decades, and now it's not.
Right? I don't know about you, but I like that it's not.
I do too. I hated the Arkansas. I hate that trophy. I hate everything about that, quote, rivalry.
Yeah, because it's not a rivalry.
It's
really not.
A forced rivalry.
Yeah, Arkansas, I think, did embrace that forced rivalry a little bit more than what we did. But even the handful of Arkansas people I know never viewed it as such. They still view Texas as a bigger rival than LSU, and they haven't played Texas in years.
They're about to.
Yeah, they're about to. But, I mean, you know what? This game happened.
And for what it's worth, they played them last year, and they kicked Texas's ass.
But this game happening in September, it's got the feel of, well, it's important because it's a division game and it matters. But this game in September, it feels like a SEC game.
Yeah.
Whereas when you try to put it on that Black Friday and make it bigger than what it is, well, it wasn't. Just like it's not right now. It's important because it's a conference and division game, and that's what it should be. And I like it in this spot, actually.
Did you see the spread in this game? You were talking about spreads earlier, and I'm going to hold you to what you said. But if Las Vegas is normally pretty right, have you seen the spread?
I did not, but I'm going to go on a limb and say it's in the 14-point range.
18.
Oh, that's higher than I would have thought.
Yeah, that's kind of shocking to me. I mean, if I'm a casual fan and I saw that Arkansas lost to BYU last week and LSU looked otherworldly against Mississippi State on the road at 11 a.m., okay, but I know better.
I mean, Arkansas didn't really look that good against Kent State 2 weekends ago either.
No. Arkansas has some issues, and their issues are at a bad spot. They're at the lines. So, it's up to LSU to do what they did Saturday, bring pressure. But you got a much different quarterback than we're facing against Mississippi State with KJ Jefferson. Completely different skill set. He's a big old dude, and he can run. So you got to have lane discipline, but, I say you don't take your foot off the gas with the pressure.
No, definitely not. You know what? If you're going to use Harold Perkins as a spy, this is more of a spy game than what that Florida State one was.
Well, KJ Jefferson, if I recall correctly, he did not play in the Arkansas LSU game last year, and Harold Perkins literally won that game for LSU.
Yes, he did.
But now we get to see him against KJ Jefferson. They don't have the receivers that they had last year, but they still have Rocket, what's his name, the running back, and
yeah.
that's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. I'm sorry, I can't overlook Arkansas. I've been too burned before in the past.
Yeah, Arkansas has always been that game. That maybe it's just because of where it used to fall. Typically, the division was decided already by the time that game rolled around. I don't know, but yeah, I agree. I've seen Arkansas just be that spoiler way too many times now to just look past it.
Well, we talked about last week Mississippi State. The typical Mississippi State game is it's a close game, it's an ugly game, and LSU wins. Well, the problem with Arkansas is it's a close game, it's an ugly game, and Arkansas beats LSU sometimes.
In Death Valley.
Yeah, and I don't like it.
I don't either. I agree, but I will at least say this. Where the game falls on the schedule matters. And I think that this game being before the Alabama game, now, way before, it's before everything. It's before Auburn, it's before Florida, Alabama, Ole Miss. I think that's gonna help.
Yeah, traditionally it had been the game following Alabama, and I do think that hurt LSU.
Yeah, it did, because at that point, Arkansas is still playing for something in a way, because as far as Arkansas is concerned, man, if you get yourself all the way up to one of those bowl games played in Florida, that's impressive, whereas for LSU, that was a letdown. So that game fell on a spot where LSU really was trending downward, and Arkansas was playing for everything, and it was a big game to them and not necessarily for LSU. Whereas now I think the game holds a relatively equal value to both squads when you play it in September.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. LSU's trying to create some continuity and build off of what they did against Mississippi State. Arkansas is trying to rebound from what happened against BYU. We'll see.
Yeah.
We're going into this game. We mentioned this last week that basically we switched secondaries with Arkansas last year.
Yeah, we did.
And they've got Nudie McLaughlin, Dwight McLaughlin, who both Nooch and I really wish was wearing purple and gold, but he's not.
Yeah.
He's wearing red and whatever they are. And we have Greg Brooks, but we don't.
No, we don't. I don't know how much we'll have him again going forward.
I don't anticipate he'll be able to play anymore this year for certain. But, came to light shortly before the game that he was being held out, and rumors start flying. Oh, is he suspended or whatever? And Brian Kelly cleared it up pretty quick. He said it was a medical emergency.
Yeah.
And okay, we knew he had suffered from some vertigo. It was like, okay, maybe he had vertigo. I don't know if you've ever had vertigo. I have.
I have not.
You don't want it. I have,
and
I guarantee you cannot play football with vertigo, because you also cannot walk across the room with vertigo unless you're up against the wall, and that's the way your body's telling you to go, is into the wall, because that's what vertigo does to you. And it affected me so much, it resulted in nausea and everything. It was terrible. Nooch and I were just talking before the podcast about seasick, and I've never been seasick. He's never been seasick, but that's got to be what seasick feels like. And you can't play football. Well, sad to report, is not just a case of vertigo. Brian Kelly, finally, the family came out and did a press release to advise of the situation, and Brian Kelly was finally able to speak on it. And he said, last week he had some dizzy spells, and this is after the vertigo, but they ordered an MRI, and it was found that he has a pretty substantial brain tumor. And he did undergo an operation. The brain tumor is what was causing the dizziness and the vertigo. Kelly visited with him on Sunday. He didn't have a lot of details. He was still coming out of anesthesia when Brian Kelly was able to visit him, and said he really didn't get to talk to him much, but he wanted to be there for the family. And it's just a tough situation.
Yeah, it is. I know a couple of people personally who have had brain tumors. And actually, all of them are young. Greg Brooks is actually going to be the oldest guy. I'm talking teens and early teens. Man, just pay attention to family members who complain of just random headaches for no reason, dizziness, those types of things. That's all symptoms. Pay attention to them whenever they pop up. They caught this early. I know they're still waiting on biopsy results, so we don't know if it's cancerous or not. It may not be. But keep this young man in your prayers. You know what? That's my man crush this year, and I'm sticking with him whether he plays or not the rest of the year. That's my guy. I'm keeping him as my man crush for the remainder of the season.
I didn't mention this, and I see now in the notes that you mentioned people you knew that have gone through something similar, dizzy spells and confusion, and it turns out to be a brain tumor. I have a nephew. He was a young man when this first came to light. He's a paramedic, healthy, good shape, and got off of work. He worked a night shift, and he was walking in the water in the Gulf. They live over in Pensacola area with at the time, his fiance, and he just collapsed in the water. And luckily, she was with him. She was able to, keep his head above water, keep him from drowning. He's a pretty big guy compared to her, but able to get some help, get him out, and basically she saved his life. But that's exactly what it was. He has a brain tumor, and he's been through the operation. He's been through treatments. This has been probably 6-7 years ago now. And his is cancerous. But he's married now and has 2 kids, and he's still a paramedic. So, treatment has come a long way.
It has. My sister's little girl, my little godchild, sweetest girl in the world. She was early teens, and they were actually all on vacation to Key West. She came out of the room. My parents were on that trip, and my dad said, "Man, look, I'm telling you, it looked just like someone who was on psychedelic drugs from the 60s. Like, she came out of the room with this completely blank stare and dizzy, like walking in the walls, like had no clue who anyone was, didn't even recognize her own mother. I mean, she was like 13. They knew she wasn't blitzed on acid. Yeah, they knew that. So that's how they found it. She ended up in an emergency room in Key West, which was mostly equipped to like pull fish hooks out of people's hands, and had to airlift her to Miami where they found it. And hers, fortunately, was not cancerous, but it was a brain tumor, pushing on the frontal lobes of the brain and everything else. And now she's a junior in college, nursing student, brilliant. You would never know anything ever happened to her. So you can bounce back from it. Absolutely you can. The key is catching it and doing what you have to do to it medically. And also, man, look, I don't know if he'll ever be able to play. I know he said he's going to play again, but that was one of the big risks with her as a dancer was contact isn't a good thing while all of that's healing. But I don't know if he'll be allowed to play again. It's going to be one of those where you don't need to be getting hit in the head anymore.
And I'd love to see number 3 back out there on the field, but what you just said about, bouncing back from it and surviving it, like your niece and my nephew, that's my prayer for Greg Brooks, is that, he's able to come through this and live a full, healthy life. I don't care if he's working at a bank or playing football. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Greg Brooks personally. Everything I've ever read, he's a phenomenal leader on the team, and he seems like a genuinely good person. And I hope for the best for him. Yeah, sure. I'd love to. I picked him as my man crush this year. I'd love to see him play again. I'd love to be sitting here doing a podcast next season talking about my man crush, Greg Brooks, making plays. But if that doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And I'm like I said, I'm gonna stick with him. I'm the hashtag that his parents put, pray for 3. I'll probably throw that up on somewhere on my profile to keep up for the rest of the season, and hopefully he has a complete and full comeback.
We talked about the switch that was flipped with the defense, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say I have a feeling that situation brought this defense together. I'm wondering if we're going to see some sort of patch or helmet sticker or something like that. I don't even know if they allow that in the SEC or in college football, but
I know they do. We wore a Mike Leach helmet sticker for the bowl game, so I know it is allowed. What I'm wondering is, can you do it, or does the entire team have to do it, or can only certain? Because I'd love to see the defense rocking that 3 somewhere on their helmets.
Yeah, likewise. And I'll be honest with you, because if we're allowed to do it, I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's where he came from.
Yeah.
He
I
transferred
mean, Sam
over from
Pittman
Arkansas.
has already spoken on the matter, and there's no animosity there. His thoughts and prayers are with Greg Brooks, just the same, and that's just the way it is. I mean, when you coach a guy, he's one of yours, whether he's still with you or not. And I thought the words that Sam Pittman had to say were heartfelt, and it wouldn't shock me if they didn't honor him themselves.
When you hear them talk about Greg Brooks, and that also speaks to the type of person Greg Brooks is, that Arkansas, there's a ton of respect still there for that guy.
Yeah.
Whereas we've had a DB recently transfer out who, let's just say, he wasn't spoken about in those same types of terms. Now, granted, he didn't have any medical issues, but we didn't speak quite as highly about him as what Arkansas speaks about.
No,
Brooks.
he had some medical issues. He had some burns on him last year in the game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he did kind of just absolutely abuse. He was an abuse victim that game.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he got assaulted by Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors all game long.
True. Good point.
Whose man crush was that?
I don't see why do you have to keep bringing up shit like that.
All right, so we got a night game in Death Valley, Saturday night in Death Valley. How you feeling?
Man, I wish I would be there. I mean, that would be nice. It's my first football season not being home. It's kind of really throwing me off. But good thing is we get the A-team on the announcers. Herbie and Fowler are supposed to be there, which means hopefully we'll have a Skycam film study next week.
Oh, yeah, it's about time you get off your ass. Hey, what you cooking for the game? I know you up there in damn near Canada, up there in North Texas.
Yeah, the temperature has switched again. We're no longer getting fall-like weather. We hit 102 today.
Ooh.
So I'm sure that makes all of y'all happy.
So gumbo's off the table?
Yeah, so I'm probably going to smother some pork chops like in an onion gravy. I'm guessing that's probably the route I'm going to go because I've got pork chops and we're playing against the pigs, so why not?
Yeah, man, you might have just helped me out. I'm actually going to do a gumbo. And the reason why is because I got to do something.
It's only going to be 90 for you?
Yeah, that too. But the reason why is because I got to do something with all these doves.
Yeah.
You ever had dove gumbo?
I mean, I have not.
You ever had duck gumbo?
Yes.
It's got to be similar, right? We're going to try it.
I would think so.
And I was trying to figure out what am I pairing it with, what other protein, and I'm thinking sausage or chicken. No, it's going to be sausage.
Yeah, pork sausage.
Yeah, it's going to be pork sausage and dove gumbo. That's what I'm going to be having.
Okay. Sounds like a plan, dude. You know what I currently have sitting in my freezer right now for the first time in years?
You got some venison?
Oh, no, way better. Way better. I've got fresh alligator.
All right, then. You got to save that,
though. I'm thinking sometime, let's just say Veterans Day sounds like a good day to cook that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well. All right, y'all come join us over at GameDayTigers.com. It's www.GameDayTigers.com. Y'all come hit us up in the chat room during the game. Nooch is going to have the game topic going up probably Saturday morning.
Yep, that's usually on game morning. That's when I hit it.
We're going to have a lot of other discussion up there. A lot of things that we discuss on the podcast are being actively discussed on the forum. So y'all come check us out. See y'all in Tiger Stadium Saturday night in Death Valley. Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.